It's your brother PJ back with another lesson. And this is going to piggyback off of basically what I've been talking about earlier with the swarthy French, and also talking about the Napoleon, and talking about just Europe in general, which I'm going to cover some more information about that. But just talking about Europe and in general, about the true original people of Europe. So today I'm gonna cover this document, well, really this book, which is a good book by a well-known person in history, recent history, and it's Benjamin Franklin, Observation Concerning the Increase of Mankind, 1751. And this is a book that he wrote, and it's basically like his observation of slavery and race and different people and races of that time period. And this is in 1751. And if all of us understand, we all know and can comprehend that Benjamin Franklin is somebody in recent history that we can understand that is a white male. His genealogy, ancestry is all confirmed. He is a white male. So he has a very great understanding of race and what race is at that time. So I'm just going to read an excerpt from a page in the book. And since the detachments of English from Britain sent to America will have their places at home so soon, supply the increase so largely here, why should the Palatine Boers be suffered to swarm into our settlements, and by herding together establish our languages and manners to the exclusion of ours? Why should Pennsylvania be founded by English, become a colony of aliens, and who will shortly be numerous as a Germanize us instead of our Anglify them, and will never adopt our language or customs any more than they can acquire our complexion? So I'm gonna stop right here. I'm not finished reading. So basically, he's talking about you got to understand that Benjamin Franklin, he's from Europe. He's from a particular part of Europe, but he's a white Quaker that lives in Pennsylvania, and he's just expressing that he doesn't want the British Boers to overrun his town, Pennsylvania, where he lives. He don't want them because he knows they're not going to adopt his customs, his religion. He said, and for furthermore, not our complexion. So he's letting it be well known at this point in time that British people are not the same complexion, or nor do they look like Benjamin Franklin. So they do not look like your prototypical white male today, because everybody knows that what Benjamin Franklin looks like. And he's making that abundantly clear in his book that if they would come over to overrun us, they would not adopt the culture. So he's saying they would just basically wipe them out. That's what that word Germanize mean. They would wipe them out. So I'm going to continue to read. Which leads me to add one remark, that the number of purely white people in the world is proportionally very small. All of Africa is black and tawny. Asia is chiefly tawny. America is exclusively of the newcomers, wholly so. And in Europe, Spaniards, Italians, French, Russians, Swedes are generally what we call swarthy complexion, as are the Germans. Also the Saxons, only exception with the English, make a principal body of white people on the face of the earth. I could wish their numbers were increased, while we are, I may call it, scoring our planet by clearing American wood, so making this side our globe reflecting a brighter light to the eyes of the inhabitants in Mars or Venus. Why should we cite the superior beings darken its people? Why increase the sons of Africa by planting them in America, where we have so far of any opportunity, by excluding all blacks and tawnies of increasing lovely white and red? But perhaps I am partial to the complexion of my country, for such a kind partially is natural to mankind. And sorry, it's written kind of funny in the old English. So basically what he's trying to say is this also lets you know. So he's saying that the Italians, the Swedes, the Germans, the Scotlands, most of Russia, he said these are all swarthy people. And we're going to get into swarthy again. But he's saying these are all swarthy people, just like Africa. That's why I'm glad he put that comparison to Africa. So the same complexion of people that you see in Africa, and we know what the complexion of people in Africa, and he's talking about those same complected looking people are in Europe. They're in Russia. And he's saying, why should we increase that number here in America? Because he thought this land was supposed to be developed for his people, the white and red. And he's saying they're over here overrunning America, which we were, and you gotta understand we were indigenous people too, so that he had a problem with that. So he's basically letting you know what race was and who was really in control of everything in that time and place. Essentially, everybody in the world was swarthy. So let me get back to where I was. So I'm gonna get back. Benjamin Franklin stated the following in this short essay called "The Observation Concerning the Increase of Mankind." So just like I said, he makes it clear that the majority of Europe was comprised of swarthy complexion people. He admits at that point in time that the vast majority of white people were in England and Lower Saxon, and he wanted their numbers to increase. Europeans were swarthy people. The artworks today are modern. Just like I said, fantasies dreamt up, and that was just like we got into the Cromwells when they destroyed them. So a lot of the artwork of Europe today is a lot of fabricated nonsense. And Benjamin Franklin is a good primary resource to disprove a lot of this. That when so-called white people come up to you and let you know that the Dave family is from Europe, it's like, well, Benjamin Franklin even admitting that that's not true, and we don't have to go back to the 1600s, 1500s, and 1700s. We can go back to the time where Benjamin Franklin lived, and he'll tell you himself. So we're gonna get into the word swart or swarth. It has always been associated with the word black, the root word swarthy. And I'll put up a little screenshot of the 1824 dictionary, because you gotta look at dictionaries in that time period, because if you look at a dictionary today, it's going to give you a watered down meaning or interpretation or definition of what that word really meant in that time. And swarthy today, they might put it in the dictionary as it's talking about somebody's hair or somebody's eye color. But when I put the screenshot up and you see it, it's not talking about somebody's hair or eye color. It's pertaining to somebody's skin and complexion. Just like in many different regions and places, like Norwegian, Swedish, French and Luxembourg, Germany, Danish, and Yiddish, they all had the same word swart. It was spelled differently, but they all had the same word swart. And I'll put up a little screenshot breaking that down. But swarthy is simply an amalgamation of the adjective swart or swarth. The adjective suffix, thus the word swarthy means blackish. This is why historically, literacy description of swarthy and black are used interchangeably. Just like I said, so every time somebody says swarthy or swart, you can just interchange that word with so-called black, like we do today. And I'll put up a life-size sculpture from 1512 of Germany, and it'll show you the swarthy people that Benjamin Franklin was talking about. The men above are family members. Their names and their histories have been identified and are part of a large body of work. And just like I said, a lot of these people, they are part of a lot of them seals and crests that I was telling you about. And a lot of this history has been hidden. And this is why I continue to drive home your story, trying to find your people, your family, finding out where your family name comes from, finding out your genealogy, your ancestors, because it's history all over the world that we got to tap back into, that we've been disassociated from, that our ancestors have left behind. Beautiful dark skin artwork that that's locked up somewhere in the bottom of a basement. And just like this next picture I'm gonna put up, it's from the 16th century. Germany said to be an imaginary sister of Saint Maurice, a large image of the black Western art observations. Just like I said, and we all know Saint Maurice, he was a so-called Moor, so-called swarthy man. There's like a lot of people in Europe at that time, all the way up into the late 1800s. But let's get back to Ben Frank. So in 1755, Benjamin Franklin, a founding father of the United States, published a short essay titled Observation Concerning the Increase of Mankind, People, Countries, etc. And he speaks about concerning how the dark complexion of the Germans that settling in Pennsylvania. Much of his dismay, the following is an excerpt from this essay, which speaks about the general complexions around the people in the world. And since the detachments of English from Britain sent to America will have places home to simplify and increase so largely, why should the Palatine Boers be suffered to swarm our settlements and herded together establish language in the manner and exclusion of ours? Why should Pennsylvania, founded by the English, become a colony of aliens who shortly shall become numerous to Germanize us instead of our Anglifying them? And we will never adopt our language and customs and more than they can acquire our complexion. Just like I said, he's talking about the swarthy German people, the Huguenots that were coming into Pennsylvania. That's exactly what he's talking about. And I might link a video, or I might do a video later about the swarthy Huguenots, because a lot of people that come from that German Swedish line are black people, so-called swarthy people. So in the excerpt, Franklin described Africa as black and tawny. Asia and America were described as tawny. Pre-Columbian natives of the Western Hemisphere were described as copper-colored and black complexion. In the contemporary accounts of explorers and conquistadors and Jesuits, it coincides with Franklin's description of tawny. Tawny is equivalent to the French word tener, originates from the word tan. To tan something means to be blackened. So just like I said, even though somebody will give you a colluded meaning or definition, or try to water down the definition of something, you gotta understand tawny, swarthy, they all mean to tan. To tan means to blacken, to add black. So just, you see what I'm saying? They get us disassociated from words and meanings and just try to tell you something to confuse you. The above definitions are from the 17th century, bear proof that it is defined to be black, blacken, to make black, to tan, to revile, to disgrace, blemish, or to vilify. Nor is a French word for black. Tan and black are synonyms. The second term is tan, which is defined as a little black spot on the face. This word derives from the word from tan, and the only color is the definition is black. So tan is commonly called a mole today, which is considerably a blemish. So and tan is spelled T-A-N-E. So just like I said, I got moles and blemishes, and I'm not I would call myself brown skin, or I would call myself probably right in the middle. I'm not too light, not too dark, but I do have moles, and moles are very dark skin. And that's what that word tan comes from, T-A-N-E. And I'll put a screenshot of that, the definition of that. In the Short French Dictionary, Volume 2, by Guy Minge, 1691, many words existed for the various dark colors of European people, usually grouped under the term swarthy. Most descriptive terms existed, such as tawny. The term tawny is to tan, and as swarthy is to swart. Both tan and swart mean black, and both tawny and swarthy mean blackish or nearing blackness. Various colors can be darkened to reach the color black. Tawny was described as a heraldry of orange-brown color. This distinguished it from other colors that were starting points to approach relative blackness. As it was tinged with an orange-brownish color, this is why the black natives of America were often called copper color. So just like I said, if you see a lot of, it's like my skin tone, a lot of so-called African American people today, we are swarthy or tawny. That'll be a perfect example for what color shade, because some of us might be really dark, some of us could be really light, and then a lot of us are somewhere in the middle. We're not so just one same single tone color. We come in various colors. And that's the same reason why they call the American natives copper color, because they shared that same characteristic. And that goes back to what Benjamin Franklin was talking about in America. He was talking about the Americans. Well, he was like, shoot, you got the British, you got the people in Europe coming over here. Most of them are tawny. You got the people in America that's so-called tawny. You got the people in Africa that's so-called tawny. Asia tawny, Russia tawny. He just felt like he was getting overran. It wasn't working in his favor. So let's continue to read. As Franklin reaches the continent of Europe, and his description of the general population is wholly different from the population seen in the 21st century. He describes the continent generally swarthy. The countries he includes specifically generalized are Spain, Italy, Russia, Sweden, France, and Germany. In Germany, he excludes what is called the Saxons, which can be assumed were from Upper and Lower Saxon, or Upper or Lower Saxon, the Moor and the Swarthy. To hearken on the black identifications of Moor, Franklin's description placed the relatives further context. Franklin specifically described the generality of the Italians as swarthy over 200 years after the demise of Ludovico. In the image above, Guy can be seen as a definition of swarthy. He is dark brown nearing blackness. But Ludovico is black as possible. He is not like generally of the Europeans, and he actually falls under the generally of Africans. He is supergrit, the Moor meaning the black. In Italian, his name is Ludovico the second Mauro, and in Spanish his name is Luis el Negro. It all speaks to the contrast of the all nuance is lost today of his skin complexion to others in Europe. Even black people of swarthy complexions, like the swarthy of Queen Elizabeth and her Moor Sir Francis Walsingham. Such complexions are commonly attributed to the Muslim Moors. But these appellations that distinguish the extremities of darkness and characteristics of note are in healthy supply. The black band of the black adders acquired their name from the darkness of their complexion. The Angs of Dunbar, which is nicknamed the Black Ains because of the darkness of her complexion. These terms dub, and dun mean black in the British Isles, and such the Douglas clan of Scotland was said to have their name that was identifying them called the Château du Glacé, which means behold the black man. Romeo from Shakespeare, Romeo and Juliet, I am the dun. When describing his complexion, Dub was the king of Scotland, also called Niger, and Latinized for the word from the form of dub. Whereas black is angelicized form of dub. The 13th century knight from the Ghent in the Geraldvillian was nicknamed Gerard Duval on the account of his dark complexion. His wife gave him a son of equally dark complexion, who was given a supergrit, the Moor. Beethoven's nicknamed Black Spaniard because of the dark complexion. Godfrey Fincher, the contemporary of Beethoven, described him in his manuscript of having dark brown complexion. Alexander Willock Thayer, Beethoven's prominent biographer, said that the facts were too patent in the blatant mischaracterization of the appearance of Beethoven that it began to occur in his death. Thayer said that both composers Haydn and Beethoven wore dark complexion, and the Prince Esterhazy, who was employed by Haydn, called a Moor on the account of his complexion. Thayer wrote that Beethoven even more of a Moor than in his looks. The life of the Ludwig Beethoven. The terms Moor, nigger, niger, negro simply mean black, but are today considered derogatory. People are being convinced that the words black equates to less than. This is a result of the international mischaracterization of historical figures and what has transpired in the past. And the deception is strategically placed black people in the endless cycle of self-hatred. Time and energy is spent fighting against the N-word in America and the M-word more in Europe and the K-word karf in South Africa, while time and energy is exhausted fighting against these used, termed, and misunderstood words. Children are being herded to schools to be infected with ideas of inferiority, thought up by those who wish to be superior. So just like I was saying, when you go to school and all these definitions, we're arguing about these things, and when they go to school and they get taught, we're getting taught a lot of confusion. So you don't understand that a lot of these so-called Europeans and so-called British and Scottish and Italians and Spaniards and German people and Swedish people, these people were melanated. And it all gets lost in translation because we don't tap into the old history. Just like when I was reading from this document that I'm reading from, and I was highlighting certain things, a lot of these words that we don't use today or we don't associate with just being that's a descriptive word, that's an adjective. We got to take it as it has to be something derogatory. These stories and origins of race, master, and slave are being used as means to keep an entire race of black people mentally subjugated. And black children are taught that people who look like them have accomplished little to nothing in the context of human civilization. Thus they venture into the world with little expectations for themselves, ready to follow those they believe to have a long history of great accomplishment. In contrast to these falsehoods, the vast majority of notable characters in history were various shades of brown and black. Benjamin Franklin goes far as to say that so-called white people were small in numbers in Europe and were generally limited to England and in a region of Germany. In the middle of the 18th century, he wished that the number of white people would increase and wanted to reserve America for lovely white and red. This term may not equate to the modern understanding of what so-called white race of today is and will be, but you gotta understand that white and red, because you gotta understand that most so-called white people, they come in different shades of white and red. And so just to close out, is like when I was reading from that document, and just like I harp on, but this why I do this is for the next generation. It's for the children, so it's for the young folks, so they can be proud of their history wherever they from. No, it might be from Europe, it might be from Asia, it might be from the Americas. You know what I'm saying? To be proud of the things your ancestors left, because you got a lot of people staking claim in the things your ancestors did, and if we don't try to correct it, a lot of things will be lost. And that's what this whole conversation is about, and really the crux of this conversation, and why I'm pushing this history like this, and pushing this truth. Because this is something that should fire people up. You know, this is something that should make you feel good. This should inspire you. It should give you a whole new perspective, a whole new way of looking at life and everything. Because the way we are taught things, we're taught that we are slaves, we've been oppressed, and we've never really accomplished anything in America or anything outside of Africa. When the thing has been truth, black people have been living all over this planet. We have been inhabiting all these lands and building all these different monuments you see. All this historical stuff you see, that's your people building that. And we got to take pride and embrace that. Put a smile back on our face. Be happy as melanated people, as ebanoid people. And we got to cherish our history, because we've been detached from it for so long and told so many lies on purpose. So that's why we vibrate at a low state. That's why we want to rob and kill, because we don't know what we truly capable of, who we are, where we come from. We can do great things once we come together and we know who we are. But this is your brother PJ. I just want to come with a short lesson. This is Benjamin Franklin, observation of humankind, and I'll see y'all on the next one. Y'all stay blessed up. Y'all stay prayed up. Y'all eat right. Watch over your family. Shalom. I'll see you on the next one.
Any modern program or education on black history will always try to tell you that the black race was a race of savages or a race of slaves, but this is far from the truth. when we look back at history, especially throughout the period of the 1500s to the 1800s, we see kings, queens, lawyers, mathematicians, leaders of state. We see knights and saints. Slavery, as you know it, was a hoax, or what we call a psychological operation, because the black race was already in Europe, as we can see depicted in the art here. And we also know that the black race was already in America. All of the photos I am showing you are from European royalty. By understanding our true history, we can break the stereotypes that are cast out for us in society. Those who don't know their history are doomed to repeat it.